Play action pass out to Ben Vincent. Gets through a would-be tackler. He goes down the sideline, across the 50. Ben Vincent gets a block from Xavier Martin. And Ben, the freshman, could have his first collegiate touchdown. He does! Touchdown, Threshers! Hello and welcome to the Thresher Football Show. I'm Dan Page alongside head football coach at Bethel College, Josh Lawson. Bethel coming off a 51-0 loss at Evangel this past weekend, and now getting set for their final game of the 2025 season as they hit the road to Ottawa for a 1 o'clock kick this week. And it is winding down to the end, Coach. I know you're just counting how many bodies you have left for this last bit.
Yeah, I mean, we started the season with about two-thirds of a football team just to begin with, and with injuries and stuff like that, it's been rough the last few weeks, but the guys are fighting hard. They're getting ready to play, and I think there's a lot of them that's excited about this weekend.
Yeah, it is finally down to 11 weeks, 11 games, basically 15 weeks if I guess you could start with camp and everything. But I'm sure there's a lot you've learned about just this group and, stepping into being a head coach at the college level for the first time. But, I mean, it's got to feel like a blur at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, every football season is just – the season just whips by, and it's done the same thing this year. I mean, you go 7 days a week, you're working 80, 90 hours a week, and it's just you get to the end of it and you're like, where did it go? So it's been a good learning experience, especially for a bunch of our young guys who have gotten to play, and I think it's good for our future.
Yeah, I mean, the coaches feel it the most. If the players complain about the season happening so fast, the coaches already know. It's nothing new to them. But, I mean, not to rip open a Band-Aid or anything like that. I know 51-0 wasn't exactly what you guys were hoping for against Evangel. It's safe to say that their defense was ready to go. They were very good. They're very aggressive in that football game, and you guys, it was tough. You get a lot of pressure, sacked a lot of times in that game, but furthest the offense got down the field was to the 28, and that was in the first half. But a very well versed, a lot of older guys on their team for Evangel as well. This isn't their first rodeo going at it at the college ranks. But your overall thoughts from the game this past weekend? I thought early on in the game we started out okay. Our defense, gave up a big play in the first half or the first drive and set us behind a little bit. But after that, they caught back up, and for about the first quarter and a half, we were right there playing with them. Our offense actually drove the ball pretty well, 2 or 3 drives in the first half, but we never could finish it. And then towards the end of the first half, we kind of felt like we lost focus a little bit. We got to the point to where we were, had some turnovers and some things happen, and then we lost a little bit of focus. And by the time you look up against a seasoned football team that has a lot of good football players, it's too late. So, that's a good learning experience especially for our young guys that, in a college football game, there's no time. You cannot lose focus ever. Yeah, that's for certain. A very, very, like we said, an older Evangel team that's been there for a while. Their offense passed for 4 touchdowns and rushed for 3 in the game. I know, like you said, Coach, you guys had a couple turnovers there. I thought for sure as I'm watching the game there, it was 7-0 at the time, and you guys punt, and you were able to get that recovered. And that was a good heads-up play on special teams. Jaden Jones got the fumble recovery there for you guys on punt, and I was like, oh, they're at the 50. This is going well. I mean, and the next thing I know, I go to volleyball, and it's a different kind of game. But I mean, it's tough to pull some I guess offensively, some positives from that. I mean, anybody can look at stats or things like that, but I know Houston had a hard-nosed run. He took a lot of hits in that game, but he kind of showed his toughness.
Yeah, I mean, Houston's a tough kid. He plays hard, and I think this season, and I've talked to some of the quarterbacks this week, is the good thing is all of our quarterbacks, all three of our freshman quarterbacks have gotten to play this year. The bad thing is, to just be honest with you, is they shouldn't have had to play this year. And so the good thing, like I said, the good thing is they've got that experience now. They got some experience under their belt, and going into next year, it won't be so fast for them. But like I said, it's good when you can let your quarterbacks grow and before you throw them into the fire, but that's just not something that we were able to do this year.
Yeah, it is definitely a tall task, no question. Just a freshman getting thrown out there. But, yeah, he broke some tackles on a nice run for you guys. I think it was a 13-yarder at the time. But you're able to pass the ball a little bit. Josiah was back after, being held out with injury, things like that. He had a catch for 15 yards, and then Trey had 4 catches for about 27 yards. X had 2 catches for 25 in it. But, it was kind of frustrating there for the offense. But defensively, you guys were able to get 7 tackles for loss in it for the most part, and Kevin Hill had 9 tackles on the day. Mm-hmm. So I know you're a defensive guy, but it wasn't too bad despite the 51 points.
Yeah, I mean, where we really killed ourselves is we jumped off sides 5 times. That's and we did it on 3rd down. And so, we have an opportunity to get off the field. You think about, 4 or 5 drives right there where we can get off the field on 3rd down, and instead we jump off sides and give them a 1st down and let them keep driving down the field. You take 3 or 4 touchdowns off the board because you stop them right there. Now you give yourself a chance. So it's just, again, it's a focus thing, it's a youth thing, and it's something that just we've got to get better at. We've worked at it hard this week because, if you're Ottawa and you're watching that game, what are you going to do? You're going to try to draw us offside. So we got to do a much better job there.
Yeah, as it comes down to the final game of the season at Ottawa, and again, it's a 1 o'clock kick. A few other stats from that football game against Evangel. Jarek Woodley had 8 tackles. Caleb Jefferson had 8 tackles and 2 pass breakups. Again, he's having a fantastic season as a freshman. Overall for the trip, I know you were looking forward to a lot, just the bonding and things like that. What was that experience like for you guys? I
think for a lot of guys, it was a bonding experience. It was the first time a lot of these guys have ever been overnight on a college football game, and so it was unique for them. It was different for them. We tried to make it the best opportunity we could for them. Took them to the Golden Corral on Friday night, and they enjoyed that, and so and they got to spend some time together. So that's important for the future as far as those guys just getting to spend some time together and getting to bond and getting to know each other a little bit better.
Yeah, and a lot of them, are one game away from the off season and much more time and things like that to kind of grow together. And I mean, all it takes is time at the college football level. I mean, just give times and repetition, and you'd be surprised what the difference is versus that first season where you haven't had a lot of time by any means. But again, the Threshers drop their second to last game of the season, 51-0, and again, they'll take on Ottawa this week at a 1 o'clock kick from Ottawa. But we'll tell you about some results from the weekend. The KCAC Southwestern won 53-21 in Leavenworth against St. Mary. Friends over Sterling, 66-7. And Kansas Wesleyan had a tough game at home in Salina, beat McPherson 20-17. And the other scores, Tabor won 40-7 over Bethany, and Ottawa won 37-0 over Evangel. That kind of sets up at least Friends and Evangel with at least a share of their division titles and things like that. Have to earn it this last week for sure. But it was Kansas Wesleyan playing the spoiler against McPherson because you really thought there that McPherson might be a third team getting in to the playoffs, which would have been great for the conference.
Yeah, I mean, that was I'm not going to say it surprised me, but that was I guess I should say it surprised me a little bit. I thought McPherson probably have a chance there to, especially, having a chance to be the third team in the playoffs. And I don't know, maybe they got a little bit ahead of themselves a little bit or whatever, or, and Kansas Wesleyan's a really good football team. So, it doesn't surprise me that much, but with so much on the line for McPherson there, that did surprise me a little bit.
Yeah, it is. It's tough. It's, again, you can't take a week off, especially in that division by any means. And I was talking to the play-by-play announcer, Tyler Henry, for Kansas Wesleyan. He's like, they're going to smoke us. He thought McPherson was going to come in and just, leave with a huge win and things like that. But you never know in this conference. There's always some games that surprise you over the course of the season, and I think that was perhaps one of them. But that really opened up things probably clearer for the playoff picture for the conference with Friends and Evangel. They still only have it's the top team in their divisions are 4-0, and then the second best is 3-1. So they got to go out there and finish it out, and should be interesting here heading into the final week. And your guys are taking on Ottawa fresh off their 37-0 win over Avila. They're 5-5 on the year, and I know they much like us were looking forward to division play coming in, and especially for this final matchup. They want to have a winning record at the end of the day. That not only that, but they remember last year's football game against Bethel, where Bethel came into their place and won on a one-handed touchdown catch in overtime to beat them. So I'm not going to say that it's personal, but on their senior day and things like that, it's a lot on their mind against you guys this week.
Yeah, and, just to be quite honest with you, we don't really have a whole lot of players on our team that were part of that. I think we probably have about 26 guys that were on the team, and probably only about 10 of them that were actually at that game, maybe less than that. For our guys, we just got to focus on what we got to do and execute and do the things that we have to do and give ourselves a chance at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, it's hard to think about that. I just remember the history of all these matchups and things like that. And Ottawa, definitely a much better team this season, I think, than last year by all means. Their coach, Nick Davis, he's kind of grown year by year as a head coach. And, a couple years ago, they won their division and went to the national playoffs. So definitely a very quality program. And they're averaging 26 points per game on offense, 114 yards rushing a game, and 247 passing it. Their quarterback, Luke Edwards, has thrown for over 2,300 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions on the season. Kind of a mixed bag in their running game. They have a couple running backs, number 23, Anthony Powell, with 5 touchdowns on the year, and then 42, Cooper Parsons, with 5 touchdowns on the year. And then, if you look at their receivers, they've got guys that with 40, 60 catches over the course of the season. They seem like they balance things out pretty well.
Yeah, they're a big gap scheme team on offense, and so they get you flowing at the linebacker and safety position, and then they do a good job of getting you to try to stop the run, especially their gap scheme stuff, and then all of a sudden, they try to throw it. So we got to do a good job this week of recognizing pullers, fitting the run, and then keeping our eyes where they're supposed to be in the pass, and not let anything get behind us. That's the big part of it.
Yeah, they do some little things a little different with some motions and things like that. So I'm no doubt you guys are on top of it. And like you said, last week you guys have been looking at them, watching every game this year, getting ready the scouting report weeks in advance and things like that. So they do have. I mentioned their receivers. Number 2, Jaden Johnson, 60 catches for 758 yards and just 3 touchdowns on the year. And then a familiar name, number 13, DeAnthony Curtis, 41 catches for 635 yards and 4 touchdowns on the season. So their offense, they have some good ability, just like anybody in this conference, and we'll see what they do there defensively. Giving up 28 points a game, 171 yards rushing, and nearly 200 passing per game. Haven't forced a lot of turnovers as far as interceptions go, just 4 on the season, but 17 forced fumbles. That's almost 2 a game here coming into this, and 10 fumble recoveries, things like that. But their defense, they've got a lot of different guys. But from what you've seen defensively, judging their defense, grading them out, what do you see from them?
They like to play a lot of man coverage. They believe in their secondary a lot, so that allows them to do a lot of things with their with the box. And they're going to keep the box loaded for the most part. And they're gonna get up in your face and they're gonna make you beat them. And so for us, what we got to do is we got to be very disciplined in our run game, especially our read game, and read things correctly. And then when we take shots and when we throw the ball, we got to put it in the right spot. They're going to be on us close, and they're going to play heavy man coverage. So that means we have to be accurate with the ball. But if we are accurate with the ball, that gives us a chance to get away from just one guy. And so, they're an aggressive defense in doing that. It allows them to blitz a lot when they want to. And so we have to just do a really good job of placing the ball in the right place, being accurate with the ball. And when we get it, we got to get upfield and make things happen.
I'll never forget a couple of years I was, getting ready for a Bethel Ottawa football game. And I didn't know that they, quote unquote, coined the spread defense of sorts. Obviously, when you say something like that, you got to be fairly unique in how you defend that.
Yeah, I would say, their defense in this conference is unique. I would say that it's just one of those things where, they're not fancy with anything they do. They just they line up and say, here we are, we're going to cover you today, and you got to be able to complete passes if you want to beat us because we're going to load the box, and you're going to have to break some tackles today. And so that's what we got to do Saturday is we got to, when we catch the ball, we got to get upfield and make things happen, and when we're running the ball, we got to make somebody miss, and we got to get upfield and make something happen.
Yeah, when you hear spread defense, you automatically think like coverage and things like that. But they have some good guys on the linebacking core and the D-line. Number one, their defensive end, Tegan Flynn, 8.5 sacks on the season. He had 6 of those against Sterling. Mm-hmm. So, he's hungry as well. That was some weeks ago. And then their top defensive back, Ethan Yinger, 61 tackles on the year. He's number 36. And then a linebacker, number 31, Cade Monroe. He's 51 tackles, 8 tackles for loss. And then a few other guys with a couple interceptions, Donovan Martin and Elijah Han. And then number 4, Christian Obregon, 3 fumble recoveries on the season. But, you said it, Coach, you guys going to have to execute well running the football. I know that's the basics of, of your offense and things like that. But, this week more than ever, you guys are going to need that extra push.
Yeah, and I think the guys, they're excited about this weekend. We've talked about some things individually and as a group about what it means, especially for these guys that it's their last game to ever play. So I think the guys that are here with us and the guys that care about Bethel, they're going to go out there and they're going to play some really good football on Saturday.
Yeah, I couldn't help but notice, the couple practices left and everything, and I know some of the guys are already starting to feel it of sorts. I kind of noticed that, just kind of interacting with like Noah Miller. He did not want to be done with this thing, and I hope to heaven that he gets to end on his own terms this week against the Braves of Ottawa University. Again, it's a 1:00 kick at Ottawa this week. Kind of looking at their special teams a little bit, they got a decent kicker. He's made 4 or 5 field goals of 40 yards or longer. He's 5 of 11 kicking field goals. Hit a 42-yarder one time, 2 45-yarders, and a 48-yarder once. So that's that. I mean, when you have that kind of a tool, your offense can stall anywhere, and you can get some points on the board. And then they've got a quality punter in number 98, Joshua Iraheta, 4 punts over 50 yards on the year and 11 inside the 20. But special teams wise, they definitely have some guys that can kick it well.
Yeah, I mean they're accurate in what they do. They're sound in what they do. As far as field goal goes, one thing that we're really good at, we're probably really good at blocking field goals. So we got to be good at that on Saturday as well. We got to get some stops and hopefully they're not in field goal position. But if they are, we got to do a good job of our guys coming off and getting those blocks there. And their punt team, they've had a fake or two throughout the season that we've shown our guys and talked to about our guys and all that. And the big thing is on our punt return is we got to give Trayvon a chance to return the ball. And so we're going to try to do that Saturday, and I think we got a good plan for that. But yeah, they got a really good snapper, really good field goal kicker, and a really good punter, and we just got to execute really well on Saturday and make them execute as well.
Yeah, Trey definitely is a tall tall task for him. We talked about it here in the last couple of weeks, where it's the day and age for punt returns is extremely hard to get a good punt return. But when you do, I mean, it is a spectacle to watch there on special teams, and especially from Trayvon Madison. We haven't even seen. It's been a couple of years since he's had a return for touchdown, and it is definitely wild the way he runs the football. But he can definitely do it, and I hope, again, another one of those guys probably playing his last high school or college football game. He deserves a chance to shine this week. So, and again, that's at 1 o'clock this week as Bethel takes on Ottawa. Other games in the conference from the Bissell Division. Friends is at St. Mary's, so they got to travel up to Leavenworth and play a 1 o'clock game and try to earn and win their division in the Bissell. I mean, you can't count very many close games that they've had this season, so they're going to want to end it on their own terms. St. Mary in the past hadn't defended well against the Flexbone, I'll point out, just observing over the years. Southwestern is at Kansas Wesleyan. Interested to see what happens in that football game. I think that'll be a battle there in Salina. And then McPherson hosting Sterling. That's actually at noon. The other two are at 1 o'clock. And meanwhile, in the Kessinger division, all games at 1 o'clock. Tabor is at Evangel, and Bethany travels to Nixon, Missouri to take on Evangel. And, of course, Bethel is at Ottawa this week here as we come to the final week of play. It's a crossover season. You got so many things going on. Volleyball's in the postseason. Basketball's already starting conference play this week. It's all sorts of hectic. And it definitely keeps athletic administration on their toes this week. And, Coach, I know this is kind of dwindling down to your last game of your first year as a head coach at the college level. I guess one thing that I'll ask you is when you look back at this season, next year or years from now, what are you going to remember most about this year, this group, or some things like that?
I think obviously that first win, especially how we won it. I don't think I'll ever forget that. That was a pretty special day for me personally, but I think also for our team. I'm going to remember the guys that stuck with it. And this is their last year here, and they gave it their all. And the thing that's really important to me about that group of guys is they knew they were coming into a situation that was not ideal in any way, shape, or form. Being the fourth head coach in 4 years, and I think from the beginning of fall camp of August 2024 until the end of the season of that year and into the spring, I think about between seniors and guys who left last year, there were probably around 50 or 60 guys that aren't here that could have been here. And so those guys knew that they were walking into a situation where it was not going to be ideal, but they decided to stick it out anyway. So I think that's going to be something that I really remember is those guys that came back and they care about Bethel and they care about the guys that are around them, and the humility it takes to go into that situation and the attitude that it takes and everything that it takes going into a situation to where you can sit there and say, why am I going to do this to myself one more year and go through all of this one more year? It means a lot to me, and it's something that I don't think I'll ever forget, because it takes a real man to go through that and to sacrifice through that and that's one thing that I tell these kids is, like, football is not just football. Football is life. And there's a lot of quitters in this world, and guys who can make it through the tough times, those guys are always going to be able to make it through the tough times, and there's, this world's full of quitters. There's not a whole lot of men still left in this world, and this group of guys who made it through, those guys are going to be successful for the rest of their lives.
No doubt they've trained to handle the worst of the worst, and honestly, and how to handle it well more than anything. And I think we both know, just years of professional experience, there's going to be a lot of those days, a lot of repetition days. It's like, man, you have to do the same Monday every week, the same Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But it all adds up to something, and it's about what you put into it, you get out of it for sure. year. But yeah, I think this season, nobody knew what to expect going in by any means, and people just put themselves out there anyway. Mm-hmm. And that, like I said, like you said, it goes a long way. A lot of guys with solid character, and you just don't see that very much from college football a lot of times anymore. So, yeah, that's definitely something I'll remember. Again, the Threshers' victories this season, that huge win for you guys at St. Mary to get that first one, and just kind of just feel some relief of all things. Marching down the field, scoring a touchdown, and then going for two, and the way you guys got it, that was a great moment for sure. And then, victories on a Fall Fest against Sterling. Yeah, it wasn't pretty, but you guys got it done. It was fun. It was a great day, great environment, great weekend, and people will remember that. I mean, there's just people that come back just for that, and they'll walk away and they'll see something that'll make a big impression on them the rest of their lives. And then, of course, another win at home that you guys got against Avila there a couple weeks ago. So it is a lot of things that these guys are going to look back and remember. Remember how tough that was, and what did we turn it into? Is I think everybody is excited to see going forward. But I guess one thing that I'll ask you is, what's something you've learned from this season? First season as a head coach, things like that. I know you've been around for a long time, so it's hard to learn new things and things like that. But I'm sure this one probably got you a surprise or two.
Yeah, I think the thing that I would say that I've learned is, one thing is I wouldn't say learned. But one thing that has been something that is shown over and over again is just strength. We're playing so many young guys that are freshmen, and I was just being there at the game last week against Evangel, and just how much stronger that they were with all those older guys on the field, and it was. There's been, 2 or 3 games this year that I've really, really noticed at McPherson, Friends, and Evangel specifically, just how much stronger they were. And it's just, when you got guys that's been in your program 3 or 4 years, obviously they've been in the weight room for 3 or 4 years longer, and so they've had that time for their bodies to mature and get stronger. And and that's something that is glaring, that I'm looking forward to the off season to see our guys get a lot bigger and stronger.
Yeah, and I know even before the season even started, there was somewhat of a learning curve just to be able to, get going from camp the first day of things, and no doubt. But it is definitely eye-opening when you've got that many guys. I was thinking about it from a coach's perspective. Yeah, you guys recruited this many freshmen and things like that, and you get you kind of see the results of that a little bit, and think about it. We got to recruit that much harder, there in the off season. So something, to at least challenge you guys at least. But I know you guys are well aware of all that. I've been through the coaching offices, and I swear you guys were in a telethon sometimes, just on the phone recruiting guys. And it is. I'm sure your phone's going off all the time, just as the head coach, no question. But they always say that year 2 seems to get better for different teams, whether it's football or any sport, things like that. In your experience, is that stigma pretty accurate? Yeah,
I go back to the school I was at last year, Calvin University. We went 2-8 last year, and I think they are, they're either 6-3 or 7-2 right now, and they're trying to either win their 7th or 8th game. I think they're trying to win their 7th game going into this weekend, and they have a really good chance of doing that. And it's all about retaining guys, trying to retain guys, and then once you retain them buying in, and their strength and their experience starts showing in year 2. And so, there's a lot to be said for year 2, but year 2 can only be what year 2 needs to be if we can retain these kids that we have right now. And it's a little different here at Bethel than it is at Calvin as far as trying to retain kids, but that's something that we really have tried to work hard at, and I'm trying to get some things done to help us with that, and God willing, that will get done, but we'll just see.
with as much coaching experience as you have, Coach, I'm sure you hear from connections all the time about openings and stuff like that. So it's comforting, to hear you guys are committed in for another year at least for this team. I mean, a first real off season with the team, and I know that's really important, just as equal it is to the in season. Do you guys have plans for the off season to kind of grow more together, maybe serve the community or do fun things like that?
Yeah, I try to plan things about 6 months in advance. So we have a plan for this spring. One of the things that that's different here than at other places I've been is, all of our kids have what's called employment experience here, and so they have about an extra hour of work they have to do every day, and so we have to try to work around the schedule that they have. They have their academic schedule, they have their football schedule, and then they have their employment experience schedule, and so there's just an added portion that we have to try to work around. But yeah, there's a lot of things that we're going to try to do this spring. But the one thing that I believe in more than anything, is the work is what brings you close. The bleeding together, the sweating together, the working out together. Like if you want to see a close football team, it's the teams that work hard in the weight room. It's the teams that work hard in conditioning. It's the teams that just find joy in the work. And there's things that we're going to do outside of that, but that's what we have got to do this spring is we have just got to go to work, get bigger, stronger, faster, and those are the things that show up on the field on Saturday. I was talking to my staff this week, and, we really try to work hard on culture. And the thing that I told them is I said, guys, there are a couple of things you got to understand because, I got a bunch of people on my staff that, they haven't been coaching college football very long. And so there's things that I forget that I need to mention sometimes. And one of the things that I talked to them about was you got to understand, guys, no matter what we do to try to build the culture we want, and do the things that we need to do to help these kids. There's some kids that's just not going to buy in, and that's just the way it is. So what you have to understand is the kids that are buying in, those are the kids that you got to buy into. And you try to help the other ones, but if they're not going to be in, then they're not in. And you just got to move on from them. But the thing that I talk about is, guys, culture is winning. Like at the end of the day, you want to build culture, you want to have retention, then you got to win. And that's what we got to do. We got to go out and we got to recruit a really good class. And we got to take this group of guys that we have right now. We got to build them up. We got to make them bigger, faster, stronger. And we got to go recruit a really good class. And because winning creates culture. When you look at it, you can be the best culture coach in the world, but if you don't figure out a way to win, they're eventually going to fall off. And so we got to do a really good job of building our culture this spring, of building them up in the weight room and conditioning and spring ball, and then we have to go recruit a great class, and we got to show these guys that they have to believe every week because they have the chance to win every single week.
Yeah, that's for certain. I wanted to ask you a little bit, you talk about, getting ready, in between, the end of this season and just prep for next season and things like that. How much I guess in the scale of things, how much rest are you going to allow for your guys? Because I know you guys are banged up, things like that. You need to recover and things like that. But how does that work in your eyes?
So what we do is when the season ends, starting on Monday, we'll have what we call exit meetings. So I'll meet with every single player on the team, and we'll just talk about different things that need to be discussed, what they can get better at, what they're good at, what they can get better at, how they need to do that, things like that. So next week there's two things that we'll really focus on next week: exit meetings and academics. There's some guys right now. We kind of have a standard of we want our guys to be at a 3.3 or above as a GPA. So anybody who's at a level right now that is in jeopardy of falling below that 3.3, they'll be in study hall every day next week, and then we'll have exit meetings as well. And so it will be a physical rest week. and then you go into Thanksgiving the next week. And so we'll do a little bit of stuff on Monday with our guys Monday, but Tuesday they get out of class, and we don't have school on Wednesday, so we're going to turn them loose. And then the week after that, we'll do a little bit as far as getting maxes and stuff like that to get ready for the spring. Because the way that it works out is we play this Saturday. They have one full week of school, and then we have Monday and Tuesday of Thanksgiving week, then one full week of school, and then finals. So it's coming down to the wire right here. They really only have 2 full weeks of school left. So, we're really going to focus on academics, especially with those guys who aren't at the level that we would like them to be. Let them rest their bodies some. A football season is brutal on anybody, but a college football season on a bunch of freshmen is extra brutal. And so we want to try to give them a chance to rest their bodies a little bit and focus on their academics.
Yeah, I think that's a great plan because, having the accountability that you guys have set up over the course of this season prevents a lot of things. And you talk about that minimum of the 3.3 GPA. We've had people in the past here at Bethel College that, have counteracted the retention because, after one semester, they're ineligible. They didn't have enough credits or things like that. So, come next year, they're not going to be ready to go, things like that. So it's a relief to hear about that plan. I have to give you a lot of credit for your transparency in talking about these things, Coach. I really appreciate that more than anything. But it's that's one of the things as this season, as we've done this week after week, that I've come to be really fond of, and I appreciate it so much. Because everybody, nobody knows how much you care except you, and I really, you and your wife.
It's funny you say that. So I was talking to Josh Santos today. He's one of our defensive backs. I was in I try to go to the cafeteria every day and sit with the guys and just hang out with them and fellowship with them. And I was talking to Josh Santos today, and he was kind of talking. We were talking about how I am and stuff like that. And I said, yeah, it's hard on me. It's hard on me, Josh, because I wake up in the morning and all I do is think about football. And I can't sleep at night because all I do is think about football. And it's really hard for me because in my mind, I just want everybody else to be that way. It's like, hey, it's just football all the time. And so I get really frustrated a lot. And I said, there's a lot of times when I explode, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing a guy that thinks about nothing but football 24 hours a day. And when I'm around people who aren't like that, it's hard for me sometimes. And I know most people aren't like that. And Josh just kind of looked at me like I was crazy, but I mean, that's just how I am, it's football all the time. My wife will be sitting there eating dinner or something, and all of a sudden I'll get quiet and she'll be like, what's going on? And I was just, I was just thinking about, this formation and in our defense, and we're going to have to adjust this because we're short one over here or whatever. And she just looks at me like I'm crazy, but that's just that's how I am. And so it's really hard for me sometimes to be around guys that aren't that way. And as a college athlete, you can't be that way because you got to wake up and you got to go to class, and you got to do your employment experience, and then you get to do football. And so it's really, that, and it's really hard for me sometimes to just be like, how are you not thinking football 24 hours a day? But I mean, I understand it, but for me, it's really hard because that's all I do all the time. And my coaches are the same way. Like, sometimes, I'll get upset with them. And I can tell they're like, what's his problem? And it's just like, how have you not thought of this? And it's not their fault. Not everybody sits around and thinks about football 24 hours a day, but I do. And so, that's something that, and I don't think I'll ever do anything else. Like, I don't think I can stop that. I have a technique that I use at night to try to go to sleep because I learned several years ago that I don't sleep. If I'm thinking about football, I don't sleep. So I have a technique in my mind. I'll just tell you what it is. Why not?
Sure.
I might get in trouble about this, but I'll tell you what my technique is. So when I was little, in my house, and again, I might get in trouble about this. In my house, we started hunting at a young age. And so we were taught how to use firearms at a very young age and how to use them correctly. And because of that, we were allowed to probably use firearms more freely than the normal person would. And so, but one of the things that always frustrated me was I was never as good of an aim as my brother was. My brother could just pick up a rifle or a shotgun, and he was hitting the bullseye every single time. And I was never as good of a shot as he was. So one of the things that I used to do when nobody was around was I would take my rifle or my shotgun out and I would go practice. And so one of the things the thing that I do to make myself go to bed at night is I imagine myself shooting my rifle at a long distance, and I have to focus on the target, focus through the scope, and see me hit the target over and over and over again. That's how I go to sleep at night. It's the only thing that I can do to make me go. It's the only thing I've found that can help me go to sleep, because if I don't do that, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm sending myself emails of reminders of this, that, and the other. And so, it's interesting.
Yeah, I think about it, and I kind of share some of the feelings that you're on the go so much. It's so hard to sit back, and because you love the game so much, and when it becomes your daily job, it's like you have to remind yourself sometimes. It's like, this was something that I enjoyed, and I could take it easy and enjoy. And nowadays it's not like that at all.
No, I mean, and the thing is nobody puts more pressure on coaches than the coach themselves, and if you're going to be good at this job, you have to put pressure on yourself to be better every day, to work every day, to never let it be like we talk about in football. We talk about the grind, and it can't ever become a grind. It has to be something that you just love to do every single day. I know our offensive and defensive coaches get tired of me walking in and drawing on the board, and I like this, why do you like that? Because of this, and this. And I'm just constantly going into Coach Miller's office or Coach Brown's office, and I'm just constantly like, hey, what about this? And and so I'm constantly like, that's just how I think. Like, I have to do, about once a day I'll close my door and just lock the door, and I'll just pray. I'll just sit there and pray, because if I let myself, that's the only way I can take a break, I guess is what I'm saying, is if I'm not eating lunch with our players, or if I don't lock my door and start saying a prayer, I will just think football 24 hours a day, and eventually it will drive you crazy if you don't find a way to step away from it for 30 minutes here or 45 minutes there.
Yeah, well, I share some of those same things as well. But I appreciate everything, the insight. You guys, there's no question. Nobody can ever scrutinize or throw any shade on what you guys do as far as putting effort into these young guys. And you above all, Coach, it's been great to work with you this season. I'm really grateful for it. I know some of you watching, you're probably not going to see the Evangel footage because they already took the game footage down. Good. From so they can prep for the next season, or prep for postseason, things like that. So that makes things a little harder for me to go back and watch. But hey, each to their own, things like that. But I do want to say thank you to everyone this season that tuned in here in our 6th season of the show, and it has been. Every year it's been different and unique, and I appreciate Coach Lawson taking the time week after week, and no question at all. So that's going to do it for our 2025 season. I appreciate everybody, and we'll have a lot more things to talk about next go-round, and it'll be a different crew of Threshers coming in for 2026. So for Coach Lawson, I'm Dan Page. Until next football season, telling you to roll on.